As soon as Nate was appointed branch manager, he quickly revealed his greedy and authoritarian nature. His first decision was to cut the salaries of most employees, except his own. This immediately led to mass resignations, with many workers submitting their notices on the same day. Those who remained were far from satisfied, but with no immediate job alternatives, they had no choice but to stay. However, their continued presence did not indicate loyalty. They were simply enduring a ruthless boss. With the workforce reduced by half, one would expect Nate to take action to stabilize the situation. Instead, he declared that many positions were redundant and unnecessary. The result? The remaining employees were forced to take on twice the workload, often staying late into the night just to keep up. Even the janitorial staff was not spared, despite already being underpaid. When the only cleaning lady quit, Nate showed no interest in hiring a replacement at a fair wage. Instead, he simply complained about the office becoming increasingly filthy, refusing to take any real action beyond blaming the HR department. Despite repeated warnings from Mrs. Bennett, the head of HR, Nate stubbornly refused to increase the salary for the position. He even went as far as to threaten that if no replacement was found, the office staff themselves would have to take on cleaning duties. No one dared to challenge him, knowing that under Nate's rule, they could be fired at any moment. The work environment grew tense and oppressive, and employees had no choice but to silently endure the suffocating atmosphere. One morning, as Nate was once again complaining about the lack of a janitor willing to work for the low salary he offered, he glanced out the window and spotted a raggedly dressed woman carefully stacking cardboard boxes near the garbage bins. A sly smirk crossed his face. Instead of seriously addressing the issue, he saw this as an opportunity for amusement. Nate immediately threw open the window and shouted, "Hey you, how about a job for you?" The woman didn't react and continued her work. Nate frowned in irritation. He called out again, this time in a harsher tone. "Do you need money? Get over here now." Still, the woman remained unbothered. Frustrated at being ignored, Nate ordered security to bring her inside. When she finally entered the office, everyone was stunned to realize she was completely deaf. She had a hearing aid, but it seemed outdated or barely functional. Despite her rough appearance, Lauren was strikingly clean. Her hands were tidy, her hair neatly tied, and her clothes, though worn and ill-fitting, were spotless. Nate, after a moment of hesitation, recalled that deaf people could read lips. Slowly, he exaggerated his mouth movements and spoke. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" Lauren nodded. "Good. I have a job for you. It's nothing difficult, just cleaning the office. Do you agree?" After a brief pause, Lauren nodded again. Nate grinned triumphantly and turned to Mrs. Bennett with a mocking glance. "See? Hiring isn't as hard as you make it seem." He even considered lowering Lauren's salary further, but upon seeing Mrs. Bennett's disapproving stare, realized that even a homeless person would refuse such an offer. In the end, Lauren officially became the company's janitor, a decision Nate saw as nothing more than a joke. But no one could have predicted how much that choice would change everything. Despite Lauren's hard work and dedication to keeping the office spotless, she was never respected by her colleagues. From her very first day, she became the target of cruel jokes. People laughed behind her back, deliberately making hurtful comments, assuming she couldn't hear them. They snickered as she walked by, mimicking her expressions and even tossing trash on the floor just to see how she would react. Lauren never fought back or complained. She could pick up some of their nasty remarks with her old hearing aid, but she remained silent. She understood that life wasn't fair, but she also knew that retaliating would only make things worse. Every day, she arrived on time, worked diligently, and cleaned every corner of the office, doing the tasks no one else wanted to do. But instead of appreciation, all she received was disdain. At the end of each exhausting day, Lauren left the office without a single complaint. Because beyond those cold, cruel walls, she had a tiny home, a rundown shack on the outskirts of town. There, she wasn't ridiculed. There, she was welcomed by her loyal companions, 3 kittens, a cat, 2 dogs, and a parrot with an injured wing. Though she had little more than a rickety bed and basic food, Lauren always made sure her animals had enough to eat. Some days, she survived on just bread and water, but she never let her pets go hungry. Each night, she held them close, finding comfort in their unconditional love. They were her only source of warmth in a world that had otherwise abandoned her. Under Nate's incompetent and tyrannical leadership, the company continued to spiral downward. Talented employees left one by one. The workplace became increasingly toxic and productivity plummeted. Instead of acknowledging his failures, Nate simply blamed his remaining staff, berating them in morning meetings. No one dared to challenge him, fearing they'd be the next to be fired. But the company's decline couldn't be hidden forever. CEO Nolan, the man who had built the company from the ground up, noticed the drastic drop in profits. He began making frequent visits to the branch, trying to assess the situation. Each time, Nate desperately staged a facade, pressuring employees to appear busy and motivated. But Nolan wasn't easily fooled. He sensed the tension in his workers' eyes, the underlying unease that permeated the office. Determined to uncover the truth, he secretly installed hidden cameras throughout the building, directly linked to his personal computer. Day by day, Nolan observed. He took notes on employees' behaviors, their work ethic, and, most importantly, Nate's treatment of his staff. But amid the chaos and oppression, something unexpected caught his eye. A lone figure working late into the night after everyone had gone home. It was Lauren, the deaf woman everyone underestimated. And what Nolan discovered about her would change everything. One morning, while reviewing documents in his office, Nolan was handed a business development plan. The moment he flipped through the first few pages, he was taken aback. The report was well-structured, the data was meticulously analyzed, and the strategies were not only realistic but highly effective. This was the work of a sharp, strategic mind. Nolan frowned, looking up at Nate. Who prepared this report? Nate, ever the liar, lowered his gaze and responded in a falsely modest tone. I worked really hard on it, sir. I barely slept for nights trying to put it together. I hope you find it useful. But something wasn't right. Nolan had seen Nate's reports before, his messy, barely legible handwriting. The elegant, structured writing in this document was completely different. Suspicious. Nolan decided to investigate further. Reviewing the footage from the hidden cameras, he was stunned. Late at night, after finishing her janitorial duties, Lauren would sit down at an empty desk and quietly begin working on the documents. She analyzed reports, created graphs, formulated business strategies, and compiled them into a flawless presentation. She worked with a level of precision and expertise that rivaled the company's top executives. Nolan was speechless. Lauren was no ordinary janitor. She possessed intelligence, diligence, and strategic thinking, qualities that even the best employees often lacked. And yet, instead of being recognized, she had been mocked, underestimated, and pushed into the lowest position in the company. At that moment, Nolan knew things had to change. The next morning, Nate was summoned to Nolan's office. Gone was his usual arrogance. Instead, he walked in with an uneasy expression, trying to maintain his composure. But the moment he met Nolan's cold, piercing gaze, he realized something was very wrong. Nolan slowly flipped through the pages of the business plan, then looked up, his voice laced with controlled fury. Do you understand that your deception nearly destroyed this branch? Nate's face turned pale. Sir, I was just testing a new strategy. I can explain. Nolan slammed the report onto the desk. Explain? Is this what you call a strategy? Firing top employees, turning the office into chaos, and then stealing someone else's work and passing it off as your own? Do you even know who actually wrote this plan? Before Nate could respond, Nolan turned his screen to face him, playing the surveillance footage. On the monitor, clear as day, was Lauren, the deaf janitor, working tirelessly late into the night, writing the very report Nate had claimed credit for. Nate stood frozen, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He had been caught. Nolan exhaled, his tone final. You have 10 minutes to pack your things and leave. I don't need any more of your lies. Nate's face drained of color. Trembling, he turned and walked out of the office. The once feared manager, who who had terrorized his employees, now looked small and defeated. The office was silent as people watched him leave, some barely hiding their smirks. As soon as the door closed behind Nate, Nolan turned to his secretary. "Bring Lauren in." And in that moment, her life changed forever. Lauren walked into Nolan's office, her usual calm demeanor intact. But this time, she was no longer just a quiet janitor. She was someone being called in by the CEO himself. Nolan studied her for a moment before speaking, his voice measured yet filled with curiosity. "I want to know more about you. I could tell you're not an ordinary person. How did you end up here?" Lauren hesitated, as if sifting through painful memories before finally speaking. She had grown up in a poor, unstable household, where drunken fights between her parents were a nightly occurrence. Seeking an escape, she buried herself in her studies, often hiding in an abandoned house to find peace. Despite her hardships, she excelled academically and earned a scholarship to a prestigious business school. It was there that she met Connor, a wealthy but kind-hearted man who fell in love with her instantly. Despite his family's disapproval, Connor proposed, choosing love over wealth. But tragedy struck just a week before their wedding. Driving to visit friends, they were caught in thick fog. In an instant, headlights appeared in front of them, followed by the screeching of brakes and the shattering impact of metal. Lauren woke up in an ambulance. The first thing she asked was, "Where's Connor?" When she learned he hadn't survived, she fainted. But that wasn't the only thing she lost. When she woke up again in the hospital, she realized the world had gone completely silent. She had lost her hearing. Doctors couldn't explain it. Perhaps it was trauma, they said. But Lauren didn't care. The love of her life was gone, and now, so was her future. Connor's family blamed her, saying she had no right to even attend his funeral. His mother spat venomous words at her. "You deserve nothing more than to be a janitor. That's all you'll ever be. Homeless, jobless, and now deaf." Lauren had nowhere to go, but she refused to give up. She taught herself to read lips, took any work she could find, and eventually saved up for a cheap hearing aid. She wandered from place to place, searching for a chance. And that search had led her here, to this office, to this very moment. Nolan listened in silence, then finally spoke. "Lauren, I don't just want to thank you for cleaning this office. I want to thank you for saving this company. You wrote a brilliant business plan, the one Nate tried to steal. Without you, this branch would have collapsed." Lauren's eyes widened. Nolan leaned forward. "I can't allow your talent to go to waste. Lauren, I want you to be the new executive director of this branch. Do you accept?" The room fell silent. Lauren could barely believe what she was hearing. All her life, she had been ignored, ridiculed, overlooked. But today, for the first time, someone truly saw her. She nodded. Nolan smiled, extending his hand. "Welcome to the position you truly deserve, Director Lauren." The news spread like wildfire. Those who once mocked her now fell silent, ashamed. Lauren had not only earned their respect, she had risen above them all, not through luck, but through resilience and brilliance. Her life had changed forever. As the executive director, Lauren proved she was more than capable. Under her leadership, the failing branch flourished. Productivity soared, employees felt valued again, and profits skyrocketed. Nolan, once just an observer, found himself visiting the branch more frequently. At first, it was for work, but soon it became clear he wasn't just impressed by Lauren's skills. He was drawn to her. Soon, office whispers turned into reality. Nolan and Lauren were dating. Before long, wedding bells followed. A woman once mocked, a woman once told she would never amount to anything, was now the wife of the CEO. Not by luck, but by sheer determination and talent. But Nolan had one last surprise for her. One afternoon, he entered her office with a document in hand. "This is my gift to you." Lauren opened it and gasped. It was a deed of ownership for an animal shelter. Nolan had built it for her, so the strays she loved would always have a safe home. Then, another miracle. Lauren discovered she was pregnant. The news brought unimaginable joy, solidifying the home she had always longed for. And then, one morning, the final miracle happened. "Nolan, I can hear you." Her hearing had returned. Suddenly, inexplicably, as if it had never left. Lauren had once lost everything, but in the end, she had gained even more. A career, a family, and a future brighter than she had ever imagined. And for the first time in years, she truly felt at home. Lauren's story is more than just a journey from hardship to happiness. It's a testament to resilience, kindness, and believing in oneself. She lost everything: her family, her love, her career, and even her hearing, but she never let life break her. Instead of surrendering to despair, she rebuilt her life from nothing, using her intelligence, perseverance, and unwavering spirit. Her story teaches us that no one should be judged by appearances. Society may look down on someone, cast them aside, or dismiss their worth, but that doesn't define who they truly are. Talent and character aren't always obvious at first glance, and sometimes all it takes is one opportunity to completely change a person's life. Nolan, as a leader, proved that a true manager isn't just someone who makes business decisions, but someone who recognizes and values the potential in others. Had he not questioned what was happening, had he not taken the time to look deeper, Lauren might have remained a janitor forever, unnoticed, unappreciated. But through his insight and compassion, he changed her fate, and in doing so, he transformed his company as well. This story reminds us that miracles don't always come from magic. They come from perseverance, kindness, and a refusal to give up. If you're struggling in life, remember that the road ahead may be tough, but as long as you keep going, you can find your own light. What do you think of this story? What would you have done if you were in Lauren's, Nolan's, or even Nate's position? Share your thoughts. Your words might inspire someone who needs a little hope today. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more meaningful content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.